Welcome to the final episode of 2025, Conduct Detrimental. It is Dan Lust, Mike Krevchenko, just us, just the two of us. Mike, how you been, my man?
Great, actually fantastic. I mean, it's been a wonderful end to the year, to be completely honest. It was a good holiday season, some great family in town, and then some big news for myself. So I feel very blessed.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Congratulations, Mike, on your engagement. Instagram, it just fed it to me.
Yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, had to put it out.
You put it on LinkedIn?
Oh yeah,
Should not have
always.
put it on
I'm a
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn guy.
I mean, listen, I have put some things up on LinkedIn. Listen, respect. It was probably your most liked LinkedIn post.
No, but it's climbing. It could be at some point.
Okay. Well, Mike, congratulations. A really cool way to end the year. Congrats to you and your lovely fiance. This
Thank you.
episode will be a breakdown. We happened to get some pretty newsworthy stories as we were starting to close the year. We're going to generally kind of do a year-end review, talk about what's to come for next year, talk about what we're thankful for in the lovely world of sports law. Reminder, our podcast is sponsored by the lovely Themis Bar Review. It is December. People are starting to think about the bar. Yes, they are. And if you're thinking about the bar, think about Themis Bar Review. Okay, so Mike, I think we should start here. Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts. You know, I'm nocturnal. I don't really sleep. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of documentaries, and I've been listening to kind of the lay of the land of like all these shows doing year-end reviews. We're going to do a little bit of that, but we're a slave to the sports law beat, so we got to cover that as well. Mike, the stories that we are going to cover, the general roadmap for today, and then we'll end the year talking about some of the bigger stories and kind of where those stories will go. But we'd be remiss in a prior iteration of Sports Law Lust. I would have had the joke. I would have done it. It would have been the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, and it would have been DK Metcalf suspended for conduct detrimental, and I would have done the Leonardo pointing meme, like they said the thing, conduct detrimental. But now, as a father of two, Mike, listen, you're engaged. You're going to start going on this path. Some things, like, you know what? I don't have time to do the funny GIFs anymore. Now I have to grade papers and do arena football league calls, which you caught a little bit of, and we got to do podcasts. We got to bill hours. There's just no time in the day, Mike. Not even for nocturnal people.
No, and nowadays you have some technology, when you see things like that, it makes me think, I know you mentioned that meme. I think there's a Peter Griffin meme of, oh, he said it in the movie theater. It's like when the movie says their title, I feel like in the movie, that's kind of how I feel every time here. And
I thought you were going to hit me with what really grinds my gears, Jeff. That's another good one.
That is a good one. But
or Pepperidge Farms, both two very good Family Guy GIFs. Okay. Current events that we want to go over before we bury the lead. DK Metcalf suspended for conduct detrimental. We will talk about it. I watched a bizarre press conference that I couldn't tell was real or AI. We will talk about that. Stephon Diggs. It's a big day for the Diggs brothers, or a bad day for the Diggs brothers. We'll talk about the curious suspension of Trayvon Diggs the same day Stephon Diggs is charged with a felony. And then we'll talk about kind of this new shift. And maybe, again, I'm very hesitant to talk about things that I like or don't like, given my various interests in the college sports world. But talk about the biggest controversy, at least in the last couple of weeks, concerning semi-pro or basically pro players going back to college. It's basically, what's that movie, Mike, when it goes back to college? Oh, it's like Old School. It's basically the theme of Old School. Okay, Mike, and we have an update on the Tyler Skaggs settlement. We spoke about it briefly. Case has been settled. Mike, do we have any details on the settlement, or did they button everything up?
No, they buttoned everything up for now. But it was, one of the most closely watched baseball, litigation matters basically of even my lifetime, but definitely in the last number of years. So we'll see. But for now, it's confidential.
The question is, like if you're going to settle that case for whatever the amount is, whatever the number is, I think there was, like, again, just with COVID and whatnot, this is a case that lasted for 4 years, right? It was a long case. Like, and I just watched this OJ documentary on Netflix. Like, that case was tried incredibly quickly, like very close in proximity to the actual murders themselves or deaths, whatever you want to call them. But this is a case that just dragged on and on and on and on, and it's just the nature of a wrongful death case. And I feel that it lost you. We as the sports law people were paying attention to it. The Tyler Skaggs case, I would not say was a mainstream case by any means. And I think it just kind of got lost in the shuffle of 4 years had passed, and it's a shame. But I think that could have been a big case for baseball. I think if you're Skaggs on the plaintiff side, a lot of things change in 4 years, right? Like the normal grieving process happens. You maybe come to grips with what had occurred. Sometimes you just want to get past this thing, but they got all the way to trial and then they settle. So most cases settle on the courthouse steps. We'll say it's more rare for a case to start the trial and then settle later on, unless it was just really bad testimony coming out. But the writing on the case had been on the wall since the Eric K. criminal case had been decided many years ago. So I think the timing of the settlement was odd, unless, the Angels presented some type of a Godfather offer, or vice versa. Plaintiff side and the Skaggs estate just decided to drop their numbers significantly. But it's not a typical posture for a settlement of a case of that magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it's not a super closely viewed case. I mean, I don't know. I might feel a little differently. I guess maybe in the baseball world, or maybe my feed is very lawyer oriented or attorney oriented. But yeah, I think this brought closure to a lot of baseball fans. I feel like, even if not the people internally involved, but at least my feed is definitely, when that news came out, a lot of quote unquote closure for baseball fans, because baseball fans are a little different.
Well, your feed is very intelligent. My feed is like AI Stephen Hawking doing wrestling moves on other people. So to each their own. Okay, so we got Skaggs out of the way. Let's start with DK Metcalf. Let's start with conduct detrimental. So, Mike, I happen to have DK. Oh, actually, I have to be better at this. I have to be better when I give you guys cliffhangers of things, right? Like I give you guys unsuccessful bets. Luka bet might be a good bet, right? I told you guys Luka 5-1 for MVP. Jokic is out for extended period of time, so now it's really SGA and Luka. Sometimes I have good bets. But I did say last week I was in the Final Four in the semifinals of 3 fantasy football leagues. Mike, I lost in all 3 of them. Did not make the finals anywhere. One of those leagues, I can't blame for all of them. One of them, I had DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf was not having a good game in. I guess it was week 16. No, it would be week 16. Yeah, week 16. And at one point he's on the sidelines. And Mike, what's his legal name? You can do the pronunciation. I'm going to mess this up.
Oh my goodness, I don't have it on
Italian?
hand. I have no idea. I do not have it on hand. You have to. Decalen Zacharias. So DK Metcalf, I never really took the time to look up what DK Metcalf was. It just sounded like that was a cool name. So as the story goes, anytime you have a fan on player incident, there's going to be a suspension, no matter what. Unless any type of physical altercation involving a fan and a player, automatic suspension. The question is whether it was justified or not to maybe lessen the suspension. So if you watch the clip, you have the Steelers are playing a game in Detroit. It's a game that DK is not really having a good game, and there's a fan who seems like a super Lions fan. He's sitting in the front row behind the Pittsburgh bench. And Mike, what's the name again? Decalen. So according to some people in the section, and the video is really unclear. I don't think the video is uncontroverted in any way. You have this fan shouting, Decalen. Am I saying it right? Yeah, Decalen Zacharias Metcalf.
He's saying something, and he seems to be holding up this Detroit Lions fan in blue is holding up, looks like a terrible towel, like a Steelers towel, and he's shouting Decalen, and that's what people seem to say. The video, it's not really clear what he's saying or what he's not saying. What is clear and uncontroverted from the video is that DK Metcalf walks up to the guy, and he's standing below him on a field level, and the guy's in the bleachers. And DK tries to hit him with an uppercut from the ground. Doesn't look like he connects, maybe slightly. We've talked about this, and I talk about it in my law school class every year. There was a Jalen Hurts incident a number of years ago where the kind of stands caved in and almost fell on Jalen Hurts, and all these fans fell down. Some of them fell on their head. A lot of them sued, Washington Commanders FedEx Field for this incident. Jalen doesn't get hurt. Duty breach, causation, harm. There's no harm, so Jalen Hurts can't sue. Some of these fans took some big falls out of the stand. Mike, why do I bring that up? Because immediately after those guys fell, these these Commanders fans, I guess some Eagles fans, they are posing for pictures with Jalen Hurts and smiling and cheering. Same thing with this fan in the Detroit Lions situation. DK doesn't look like he hits him. Maybe he clips his hair or his ear. It doesn't really make clean contact. It's not a Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul situation by any means. But this fan turns to the crowd and kind of like hams it up like, oh, he hit me, but like doesn't look like he's hurt. So we've now had a week of like bizarre media of this fan now having to go out and do his own media because DK Metcalf is claiming that he heard this fan utter a racial slur and that justified his attack. Now, football is not like sticks and stones may break my bones, right? If a fan says something to you, you do not have a right as an NFL player, a player of any sport, really as a human being. If someone says something to you, you can't go up and slug them in the face. That does not give you the right to do it. Certainly, it would justify it in the court of public opinion. But this fan is now having to go out and tell DK Metcalf, I hope you can apologize and retract that I said that. I'm not a racist. Now, Mike, as we sit here, because I don't think we're going to hear the end of this DK Metcalf saga. Generally, most states have a 1-year statute of limitations to sue for defamation. This fan is alluding that DK Metcalf made this up, put words in his mouth, that DK Metcalf is saying, hey, this fan called me a racist, and that's why, called me a racial slur, and that's why I took a swing at him. And, to the extent the fan wants to proceed with it, I mean, in theory, there's the bones, assuming the fan's version of events is true, there are the bones of a defamation case. Mike, do you see it? Do you see what I'm seeing?
I do, but I don't know if it goes to that. The fan seemingly, like you said, jaws at him. It's like almost the situation that was at play. A fan player, like the fan's almost trolling in a sense, and I'm like curious if that has any sort of backing of like welcoming. I know you said they don't welcome a physical altercation, but I'm really curious. In the past, I mean, have you seen anything in the past of a fan winning a suit like this, or even coming close to going to trial for something like this? And even funnier though, like there's sources that what are sources, of course, but there's sources that Metcalf has previously reported that Metcalf has reported this same fan to security when he was with Seattle. So it's like, this may stretch out to a longer period of time of like, is this fan possibly harassing or following Metcalf to games and continuously doing that?
Well,
so, I don't know. It's like,
I can't think of a history off the top of my head of that occurring, but like, we not so long ago, and we'll see if it comes up at the end of the episode, but like the Ole Miss girl who was the Ole Miss student who was threatening, there was some threats that she was going to sue Pat McAfee, like talking heads or athletes saying something about someone else and causing that person reputational harm, like, that's what it's there for. And mind you, like DK Metcalf, like got suspended by the NFL for conduct detrimental to the league, right? You can't go into the crowd and throw a punch at someone. And mind you, the NFL looked at every video, they looked at every angle. I'm sure they interviewed fans, they interviewed people, they have eyes in the sky, they're looking at it everywhere. Even assuming that's true, even assuming that when he was with the Seahawks and the guy had the seats behind the bench, which I don't deny, right? I don't doubt that the guy has the same season tickets for every game. Like, you still can't go up to a fan and try to punch them in the head. So, DK's lucky he's not looking at an assault lawsuit on top of a defamation lawsuit. So, because just by nature of the fact that he didn't make contact, but DK got suspended for 2 games, which I think is light, all things considered. Mike, is he eligible to play this weekend, or is he still out this weekend?
No, he's out for the remainder of the season.
It's going to be a problem when you need a win and get in game against the Ravens. And maybe he would have helped them win against the Browns. I think he threw that. I'm not going to remember who it was, but yeah, there was an errant pass that was thrown. Rodgers usually loves throwing to DK, so that one incident could be a sliding doors moment in the NFL. The Ravens might make the playoffs because of DK Metcalf, which is bizarre, but is what it is. So we'll see. I don't think it's wrong. DK Metcalf tried to appeal, but I don't think there's any justification for it. It's very clear he threw the punch. So there's other suspensions in other sports, like Arman Sarukian in the UFC. He threw a punch. He didn't connect at a fan when he was running down. I think it was UFC 300. Way back. I think it was UFC 300. He got suspended for like 6 months. So like consider like this is really not that big of a suspension. It's not that big of a deal. He's only losing 2 game checks. It's really more of a suspension for more of an issue for his team. But if you just watch that incident, no one was there to police him. DK walked up, strolled up to the guy. There was no security. There was no nothing. No one got in between him. So, there could have been a lawsuit for negligent security on the part of the Lions had there really been a physical injury. But I don't think there's an injury here. Okay, Mike, you ready to move on?
Yeah, I mean, we could stay in the football world.
Well, this is not on the docket, but we should talk about this. Mike, did you see what happened with Anthony Joshua's car accident?
Yes, I got a notification. I mean, I didn't see what was after the initial ESPN report, but yeah, that was a wild notification to get. I mean,
yeah, let's do this quick. So, I wanted to cover the Jake Paul stuff. I watched that fight very closely, and the listeners that reach out and they ask me for a bet on things, I'm generally pretty good at those. Somebody reached out, they're a listener of the show, they're probably listening right now, and they said, "What's the bet on the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua stuff?" Because remember, Mike, last year your boy had a lot of I got quoted in a lot of media for the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, which I viewed to be rigged. My own opinion. I don't think it's fact. But Mike Tyson should not have been certified to, as a 60-year-old man. I think Mike might be pushing 70, 60, 60.
You got to be pushing 60.
Yeah. Either way, the man was in the hospital for a blood issue 2 months prior. He should never have been certified to fight. So, and after the fight, Jake Paul goes out and says, "Yeah, I was never going to knock Mike out." I'm like, well, why were there prop bets? Why were there KO bets on DraftKings if you decided that you weren't going to knock him out? That sounds like a lot like an exhibition that we shouldn't have been able to bet on. Now, Mike, before we get to the Anthony Joshua of it all, I told anyone that asked and any listener of the show that somehow hunted me down in some form of social media, the bet, Mike, was over 3.5 rounds. So Jake had to look just good enough. He had to get knocked out at some point, right? But he had to look just good enough to get the next fight against Francis Ngannou, who we spoke about in the last podcast. Really anybody big, but now someone's going to feel motivated to knock him out in a shorter amount of time. So whatever the next fight is, my bet, and this is way in advance, make sure you bet Jake Paul not to get knocked out in the first round. So he can't jump the shark, can't get knocked out in the first round, but the script is it's going to go at least a round or two. That's my bet. But Mike, that being said, Anthony Joshua was on top of the world. People, we as boxing fans, we knew Anthony Joshua well. Former heavyweight champion of the world, since lost the belt, lost to Andy Ruiz. It's a long story that we don't need to get into. But he's on top of the world. He's on Netflix. He makes, I think it's a reported $92 million and gets to break Jake Paul's jaw. Pretty good deal for Anthony Joshua. He's going on holiday. Mike, where is he when the accident occurs?
In Nigeria.
I thought it was Nigeria. We get a crazy notification that he's involved in a car accident. The car he was driving in, I believe, is an SUV, and the tire either exploded or fell off or popped. But his vehicle gets into an accident. And at least as it's being reported, and Mike, you can correct me if this does not jive with your understanding, I believe there were 2 fatalities in Anthony Joshua's own car.
Yeah.
Joshua just happened to be sitting in the backseat, right? Is it the driver and the passenger?
They just mentioned that 2 close friends and team members were the 2 that passed away. Yeah, he was sitting as a passenger in the vehicle.
I mean, we could be talking about a situation where Anthony Joshua, 1 week after beating Jake Paul, is now. Put it this way: he went to the hospital. There were some really troubling pictures of a lot of people kind of helping him out of the car. He was shirtless. We are not talking today in memoriam of Anthony Joshua, but we don't joke about stuff like that on the show. But like that, if you have 2 people in the car that pass away, God knows the story that we could be talking about, and our condolences to the families and the lives that were lost. But like, this is an insane story. This doesn't happen. You can ask me stuff like this, like Juan Fernandez, the guy, the Marlins pitcher that got into the boating accident once upon a time. You're down in Ventura, former pitcher with the Royals. Like, those kind of things happen, and we were that close to a situation like that happening with Anthony Joshua, who's at the peak of his earning powers right now, which is insane. Mike, any I mean, with just a freak accident, no criminal charges, no DUIs, no nothing stemming from it as far as you've seen?
No, as of right now, no, not at all.
Well, not that, again, we'll monitor it. Anytime there's an accident, anytime there's an issue concerning like the maintenance of a vehicle or tire issues, like somebody dies in an accident, you're going to look for someone to sue. So I'm sure it's not the last we're hearing of it, but again, speaking of stories that are not going to get the public attention, it's not. I mean, maybe to the extent that Anthony Joshua gets sued by hiring the driver, or it's an employee of Joshua's, maybe. But I would expect there to be some type of litigation from this. You don't blame the victims for filing suit, but someone loses their life, you gotta look to someone to blame. And if the vehicle hadn't been maintained in a while, that's the type of stuff you look at.
No, absolutely. And I don't know. You wonder, after coming off of such a large victory and such a big spotlight, going places and tire popping is a little, I don't know, it's interesting. It's like, you never want to assume foul play, but it's like, it's tough when someone of that caliber or stature, right after they just did something, they're like in such a public eye. I don't know. It's a little suspect timing.
So we'll monitor it. It wouldn't be appropriate if we didn't talk about it, despite it being a little dark. Mike, I know you had said we want to stay within football. Let's go back to our regularly scheduled programming. Tell us what's going on with Stephon Diggs, Trayvon Diggs, all the Diggs.
Hold on, I don't know what's going on with Trayvon Diggs.
I'll do Diggs. You just say you'll do Stephon Diggs first, and then I'll do Trayvon Diggs.
So I'll start with Stephon Diggs. Especially for him and that team that is, tied for the number 1 seed and going into key playoff games coming up soon. Stephon Diggs was charged in Massachusetts with felony strangulation or suffocation, and also a misdemeanor of assault and battery in connection with a December 2nd incident at his home that was involving a former employee. I believe we touched on it briefly, but now this has all come to an affront, and Diggs has completely denied everything through his attorney. And all the Patriots have done since day one has supported him, at least while authorities in the NFL have reviewed everything. But as of right now, there's been no league discipline, and these are criminal charges. So you would imagine if things do progress, there will be significant league discipline. But as of right now, he's slated for arraignment on January 23rd of 2026, which, like I said, is, right before key playoff games. Patriots are really looking like they could be a serious Super Bowl contender. After the Rams game last night, you just never know that. And there's Denver, there's Seattle, but unfortunately, as a Jets fan, I think the Patriots are back. And here,
you think the Patriots are back?
No, but like back in the there's the Patriots. The Patriots are on a different level than I think a lot of the other teams just being good are. That's a dynasty. I'm saying that they might be back in that type of era, but the Stephon Diggs news is obviously unfortunate beyond just a football situation, and we'll keep you updated as it comes through. January 23rd, we'll definitely, I'm sure, be receiving a lot of large news out of New England. Then you're saying Trayvon Diggs as well. Significant with the Diggs family.
Stick with Stephon for a second. He's formally charged with the felony, correct?
Yes.
Is he eligible to play this weekend, or is he being put on the commissioner's exempt list?
As of right now, there's been no league discipline at all.
They got to put him on the exempt list. They have to.
I don't know.
You know how odd it would be if DK Metcalf, who took a swing at a fan and missed and is not charged with the crime, is suspended for 2 games, and Stephon Diggs, who's now formally charged with a felony, is allowed to play. And mind you, what I believe is a meaningless game for the Patriots. I think they've already clinched the division. They've definitely clinched the division.
They did.
It's just the optics of that seem wrong. Listen, to your point, the league wants the Patriots as a, I don't know if they're in a premier market, so to speak. Sorry if I offended any Patriots fans. But this is a big story of the year. Mike Vrabel is probably coach of the year if you ended the season today. I don't know. Stephon Diggs had a really big game last week too. Made a lot of crucial catches down the stretch. I watched a lot of that game. I shouldn't have, but I bet the Jets plus 13.5, which was really stupid. Don't give me that face. Plus 13.5 seemed like a good number. Is what it is. But I watched the commissioner's exempt list. Once a felony comes into play, Mike, it's no longer just it's no longer the comments of the accused. It's some third party, be it a grand jury or the police. Mike, was it the police here that actually issued it? Is it the prosecutor's office?
So the prosecutor's office actually brought on the charges. It's not a grand jury indictment.
Okay. Listen, I don't need to be right, but I'd be surprised if Diggs plays out the whole year with a felony hanging over his head. There's not much precedent for that. Like even Watson Watson was never charged with the crime. So when he was playing, it was just with these civil cases. And again, not to make light of civil cases, but it wasn't a felony, which raises to a very different level. Most of the time, if you're charged with a felony, you're cut from the team. Diggs is too big for that, and the Patriots need him for the playoffs. So this is this weird part of sports law that we sometimes talk about. Like if Stefon Diggs was a scrub and he wasn't front page news, like he's probably getting cut right now, which doesn't make it all right. It just is what it is. And maybe the commissioner's office steps in, puts him on the exempt list. Okay, moving over to Trayvon Diggs. And the same news that Stefon Diggs maybe has one of the worst days of his professional career being charged with felony, his brother has one of the worst days of his career. So Trayvon Diggs, brother of Stefon, he's a cornerback on the Cowboys, signed a very big contract. Let's see if I have the deets. I think he signed, it was a 5-year deal in 2023. Let's just say it was tens of millions of dollars.
97.
There we go. Yeah, there it is. 5 years, $97 million. So that was one of those contracts that sounds like 5 years, $97 million. He's going to get $100 million. Then you have to remember that football is one of these weird sports where the contracts are not guaranteed. So my understanding of the contract is that the contract was only guaranteed. It was signed in 2023. It was guaranteed for 2024 and this year, 2025. It wasn't guaranteed through 2026. So if he was released in this offseason, or obviously before the offseason, the Cowboys are not on the hook for this money. So in one sense, you somewhat expect him to not be with the team. It is somewhat odd for him to be released week 18. He's eligible to be picked up. Maybe that was his, I don't think it would be his request, but the team can pick him up at this point. Maybe the Cowboys are trying to save a few bucks. Maybe fans aren't showing up to Jerry's World. But it's not a good day for the Diggs family all of a sudden. And again, Mike said something very interesting in Anthony Joshua, that you thought foul play could have been involved. Which I like where your head's going. Again, this is exam spotting season, issue spotting season. I find it hard to be coincidence. And again, I'm happy to be wrong, and we're just stating our own opinions here. On the day that Stefon Diggs gets charged with a felony, his brother, who's on a team that's not really competing for the year, gets cut. Do I think the two things are related, the Stefon Diggs and the Trayvon Diggs story? Not necessarily, but timing is very odd. So if it comes out that there's some linkage or some maybe inappropriate communication one way or the other, or just the optics, it's not going to shock me. I'm just not convinced at this point it's 100% football. I'm happy to be convinced at a later point in time, but that was my first, when I saw the news back to back, the timing seems so odd. But yeah, because they could have released Diggs at any point, like during the meaningless Washington Commanders game, and they went for fourth down 6 out of 6 times. Like if that game didn't matter, why does this week 18 game matter? What happened between week 17 and week 18? We're going to get into another situation where he was like grossly insubordinate or something. That's also very much possible. But on the day that the Stefon Diggs story comes out, Trayvon Diggs gets released. My issue spotting brain is at least triggering. We'll see what comes of it, but worth flagging.
Yeah, my only thought is it's the Cowboys, it's Jerry Jones. You just never know at any point. Sure. It could be so unrelated to absolutely everything because it's just Jerry Jones and he does business at any time, anyway. So I don't know. But yeah, I could definitely, I see where your head's at in that situation for sure. Because Diggs has been somewhat controversial in the past, as at least on field. And I'm sure that would also play into it, but it's Jerry Jones, so I could see it. I like where your head's at on that, though.
I don't know if I'm right. It just, you got to, we're not doing our job if we're not pointing out the issues. Okay, Mike, let's go to our last current event, and then let's go over to kind of our year-end recap. I'm seeing this everywhere, and there's very few times in the NIL space where I stop and I think, like, this is really big, and I'm not sure this is a good thing for the sport. Certainly, we've had this conversation on the podcast about whether college athletes will unionize. I think it's something that is inevitable. I'm not sure if it's good or it's bad, but like it's inevitable. But two sides of the coin, right? Revenue sharing and taking money away from non-revenue sports. Again, Not sure if it's good or bad, but it is what it is. This one is another one of those, Mike. Never in my life has a player been drafted, like played with the team, like maybe not played the pro level, played at the G League level, had done summer camps, right? Like, played overseas, and then could go back and play at the NCAA level. We're having a ton of basketball. I want you to break down the news case we'll talk about momentarily. Seeing it starting to come up in other sports. I'm not sure I'm okay with this. Like, at what point are college sports sacred? At what point are we going to have some limits? But Mike, break it down, and then I'll jump in.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, it's a good kickoff of the topic because it is extremely controversial and really sports changing as a complete whole. James Najee is the player we're talking about who just got signed to Baylor. I would be very surprised if you haven't seen the news already, but Najee was selected 31st overall in just a couple years ago in the 2023 NBA draft by the Pistons. And now via trades and moving draft rights, his draft rights and current NBA rights are with our New York Knicks, thanks to the 2024 trade centered around Cat or Karl Anthony Towns. So you had mentioned James Najee played overseas after being drafted, but the caveat here is that he never signed an NBA contract. So they're saying, I guess, within the NBA system, he never actually did play with any of the teams. You had mentioned, or I had mentioned the Detroit Pistons or the New York Knicks. So he's now enrolled at Baylor and was somehow ruled eligible to play NCAA basketball in 2025, which makes no sense. Like you mentioned, historically being a professional, especially after just being drafted, and it was an absolute automatic NCAA death sentence. You're not coming back, or you're not ever starting here. But somehow the NCAA cleared him through that, and they didn't announce any headline rule change either. They just this is where it's so crazy. It's such a case-by-case basis that's now being made through individual waivers, eligibility reinstatement committees, and the post-NIL pressure, like you had mentioned, this post-NIL world. There's a lot of, I guess, antitrust exposure going on, so that I guess they had to, they want to avoid. So now they're focusing on really what was the benefit to this, or what is the NCAA even focusing on now when it comes to allowing a player, and what pro experience even matters? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like, we mentioned he went overseas pro league. Now, what's the NCAA's view on that? I guess now they're potentially eligible, drafted but unsigned, potentially eligible, but then they sign a G League standard contract. That's a pretty gray area, but I guess not. Like an NBA I guess the only disqualification that we're going to completely go off of here is an NBA contract at this point. I mean, that's what I'm reading from this entire situation with James Najee and Baylor. And Baylor's supporting it. I mean, Baylor's all for it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, let's go back into the annals of conduct. And for me, there's like BCD and like ACD, like before conduct detrimental, before I joined the fold here, like unheard of, right? And you just would never think that a player could do that. And then in the BCD world, we've talked about this. I'm gonna trademark that, Mike. Like conduct detrimental resorts, worlds, casino, BCD. In the BCD era, where we teach our listeners how to issue spot, we flagged this years ago when J.R. Smith was allowed to go back to school and play NCAA Division I or Division II golf. The understanding at the time was, hey, if you went pro in another sport, like in basketball, and you didn't go to college, you could go back and play a different sport. So we had some fun. It's probably Taryn way back when, talking about like LeBron could go back to Ohio State and play like tight end. Like in theory, he didn't go to college. So like, I get it. So like in theory, it's not that different. Like, so Najee, who never went to college, right? Did he go to college or was overseas?
Overseas from Nigeria.
So you never went to college. And again, if we're living in this farce of like, we want people to go to college to get an education, like who are we, just because someone declares their profession as being basketball player, like they should be allowed to go back to college. And after athletes retire from school or retire from the pros, like a lot of the time they go back to school and get their degrees, or sometimes they get their degrees while they're in school. This issue is whether they should be able to play the same sport that and this is where I'm not sure I agree with this carve out, like signing an NBA contract. That's like, do we not call a 10-day contract an NBA contract? Like, what happened to declaring pro or declaring for the draft? Does that not matter anymore? Like, does it matter that you've declared for the NBA draft? So, in one sense, like, I don't, obviously no one on the world on earth is going to say that someone who failed in an NBA career or NFL career, hockey career, can't go back to college and get a degree. Like, that's a given. Everyone should be able to do that. But for a player that was involved in the Karl Anthony Towns trade, that was an NBA asset at the highest level, like, we're just supposed to forget as NBA fans that existed. So there's this weird dichotomy of like, yeah, maybe the player didn't sign an NBA contract, but at the NBA level, he was used in a real tangible way. So I don't like the gamesmanship that can occur between the lines here, that a player can just kind of go back and forth between college and the pros. Then we have no lines of, like, I get it, they've been blurred a little bit about like amateur sports, college sports, pro sports. Like, I get that, but to just wade back and forth, I think just, it opens the floodgates to a whole host of exposure and exploitation that I'm not really comfortable with. And Najee, I don't think you blame like Scott Drew over at Baylor. Like, he did what he needed to do for his team to win. It's going to be very odd for Najee to join the team in the middle of the year. Like, the whole concept to me is very odd. Maybe that's just like I guess I'm an old person now, I'm the millennial in me, thinking like this is just not how I grew up watching sports. But like, we have flagged this. Like, the NCAA said that J.R. Smith could play college golf. Like, we would have freaked out if LeBron went back to Ohio State or like went to USC and played tight end. But in theory, the NCAA's prior ruling seemed to allow for that. So like, no one really made a big deal of it then because J.R. Smith playing golf was kind of fun. But a basically a professional basketball player going back to college, like, can he get drafted again? Who holds his draft rights? Like, the fact that he was traded to a team, does he go back to the Knicks? Like, is that how it happens? Like, the whole thing is very odd. I'm just not comfortable with it.
No, absolutely not comfortable with it. And it's a scam all around. I mean, it's like that. Come on, I am 12 in bench warmers, correct? Like, what are we doing? Like, it's you're bringing someone that has professional maturity, professional experience, professional everything. You can't, in my opinion, bring that back into the playing field. It's like this whole post NIL, and what we should be talking about is, the compensation aspect of things. But now we're going to utilize the compensation portion of everything to now bring players back physically to play to win national championships. I mean, I think that's nonsense. And I think that's two completely separate conversations and two completely separate things that they're pushing into one. That you're going to tell me that because players are now getting paid on the college level, we should now be able to also allow former professionals to come play college basketball because they didn't play in the NBA. I just think that's nonsense. And the integrity has already been questionable, but I feel like a lot of it's been on the football side, at least in the news. Basketball, I mean, this just to me might open the floodgates for a whole, teams of professional athletes possibly joining. Even middle of the year is even crazier,
Well,
man.
like if someone is like a practice squad player at the NFL level, does that mean that they can go back? Like, that to me, practicing with an NFL franchise and being under world class like coaching and training and weightlifting, like, what point have, like, once you've jumped, like, I don't want to use a term like portal, but you know what I mean? Like, once you've stepped over the boundary, once you've gone into the upside down world, I'm not a Stranger Things person, but I understand the reference. Like, you're in a different world. You can't just like go back that easily. But like, listen, if I was a Baylor fan, maybe I'm all for it. Like anything goes, wild, wild west. No one's punishing anyone for anything. Whatever goes. And I'm seeing, a lot of these eligibility cases that, again, we've been on the podcast talking about Diego Pavia. Like, do I think a guy should be able to play for 8 years at the college level? No. And hopefully I'm being consistent. I'm saying that a guy who, is played in the pros for a number of years can't then go back. Like, there has to be some understanding that, like, students, for the most part, you are a freshman, you're a sophomore, you're a junior, you're a senior. And there's obviously some gray zones, super senior years, post-grad years. Like, I get that. But like, the athlete time frame is so far removed from the student field. That's like, this is supposed to be for students that are going to school. Like, and it's just kind of a farce. So like, in our doomsday scenario of things that we've talked about could happen, I have said it, and again, I'm not predicting it. Never put a time frame on it, but the splintering of the NCAA and like as a kind of professional entity, I think is closer than we've ever been. So, I'm not quite sure what we do with it, Mike, but we're going to get more and more of these stories as we head into 2026. People are calling lawyers across the country to assess their rights, and people that had failed careers that declared for NBA drafts early, right? Maybe they're like 32, right? And like they went to the summer league, they never got, and they got hurt, and maybe they want to go back to college now. Like it is so bizarre to me, Mike. The whole thing is bizarre.
And that's, I mean, until there is some sort of regulation, that's going to be the case, and new things are going to open every single week. And 2026 is going to be no different. 2025 was crazy. I think 2026 is going to be significantly crazier.
Good segue. I'm going to do mine. You're going to do yours, and then we'll put a bow on this episode. My biggest story of 2025, we talked about it. It's a great transition here. It's really just the changes in NIL. Like we constantly have brought new stories. At some point, like I just have to stop myself and say, like, and a lot of this is white noise to me. Like everyone had this whole. It was funny. Like we had Amanda and Sam Ehrlich on to talk about the SCORE Act. I'm like, the SCORE Act's not going to pass, guys. Like, let's be honest. And like it doesn't pass. Like we can have year after year, legislation after legislation, and we don't have a really big update that creates, I don't know, some guardrails around the space. So yeah, Mike, that's my biggest story of 2025. The NCAA versus House case settles, and we start having some hope that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, NCAA versus House, we have athletes that are going to get paid, back pay, future pay, and I think the salary cap has been a real. There's obviously ways to circumvent it. Not that anyone's asking me, but I think that put some guardrails around the sport about what schools could spend. I think schools were worried about putting more money on their books than they were allotted to under the House settlement. And then we have this whole participation agreement that fell through. We've had College Sports Commission not really having any teeth to their punishments. So, as much as we take a couple steps in the right direction, like we still have not taken that giant leap for mankind that you hope is coming in 26. But as we're just talking about a story that throws us into more turmoil. So we can't expect it at this point.
No, I agree with you right there. I mean, that's by far, I think the biggest story in because we're so involved in the college sports world. I think also sports betting is going to be a significantly larger story come 2026 in the college sports world. But I think that has to be my number one stories for 2025 is just there were so many sports betting scandals this year involving players directly. We've had sports betting scandals in the past, but the amount of players that came out and significant players, I mean, there's 3 college basketball players, maybe, I'm sorry if they're listening somehow, maybe not as significant, all the way up to Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups. Like, these are significant federal sports gambling issues, federal sports gambling investigations, and it's not stopping now. It's only going to get worse in 2026. And I think it was a really eye-opening year for the legal side of sports betting and especially professional athletes, both college and professional, quote, I mean, they're both, the lines are blurring, but I think it's a really eye-opening year that we're just hitting the surface. It's like if you ever seen those iceberg images of, just the top of the surface. I think there's a lot more to go when it comes to sports betting in 2026. And actually, funny enough, I got a Riverside recap for 2025, and betting was our number one word. So in all of our recordings, all of the podcasts this year, betting was the number one topic and word that we discussed.
Send that to me. I'm curious. I didn't get that.
Yeah, no, it's through the Riverside platform. Cool. I'll send you the video. It's crazy. So I think that we're just opening the envelope here.
Well, one of us is one of us likes to partake in the conduct detrimental resorts world and casino, trademark pending. Yeah, Mike, it's first of all, very well said. I'm only laughing because as much as we talk about betting stories, we also, your host has not had the most successful year providing winning bets to our patrons. But yeah, So listen, the house always wins. Let's. I think the only thing I want to add on betting, we've alluded to this. Like, there's this weird window, and maybe we'll still see it. The suspicious betting patterns, like Big Brother is watching. There will be athletes that get caught betting on sports. We're going to have it. It's a matter of when. It's not a matter of like who, where, when. Just like, no, it's going to happen, and figure out what we're going to do about it. What we still haven't had really any clarity on is, what's going to happen with Terry Rozier, his contract, which we talked about in the last episode. I also expected to get a Steve Ballmer, Kawhi Leonard update, but has not come in yet. Not really gambling, but just things we have to watch out for. But yeah, we'll certainly see. I don't think the FBI is done investigating this, and we'll see. I as much as we've had big stories in like the NFL, we've had big stories in Major League Baseball and the NBA. Like, we haven't had the NFL story, we haven't had the NHL story, and like, bad things are what do they say? Bad things come in fours. That's what they say.
Sure.
Threes, but like, sure, fours is fine. Okay, Mike. I don't have anything else. You want to make a kind of a statement of the union, and we'll call it a day?
No, just to thank you for another great year of Conduct Detrimental. We appreciate it all across the board. Social, our law student board, big shout out to all of them. We putting out some more great things and more great events in the year. We were the #1 show for a lot of you, and we really do appreciate it. You guys are wonderful. And Dan, I got nothing else. Thank you for having me on. Another great year, and I'm looking forward for what's to come.
So I'll say this: I had this weird thought, as I tend to do from time to time. You and I have gotten on a nice recording schedule. It's basically been every other week. We've talked about it with some of our other kind of contributors, trying to do weekly content, and maybe it's me coming. I like doing every other week. I think that's pretty good. We can do a nice recap, and we can get on our consistent schedule. At some point, I'll be able to get back on once a week. But Mike, I had this great idea. Can I workshop this with you while we're on the air?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Trademark not pending on this, but if somebody wants to steal it, they can. But I'm using it first, so like, common law trademark rights, it's all good. What do you think about this concept of the legal arena?
Legal
I
arena.
like it.
Okay.
The name sells itself. What I think that we should be doing is once a week, just bringing someone on. They could come from the crowd, they could come from LinkedIn, and come from one of our contributors, one of our people, one of our board members behind the scenes that's doing good work and wants to come on the air. And they're just coming into the arena. So maybe you'll be the ref. Maybe Landis will be the ref. Maybe Bryce, will be the ref. I don't really know. But I want people to come on, and I want people to be able to voice new opinions. It shouldn't just be us. But we can have guests. We talk about breaking into sports, but like, that's no fun. We're a competition podcast. So back in the day, we had a short-lived show with our friend Conlon Farrell, who had a show called Bench Point. So we did that. It was a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of editing, video focused. So we had to get dressed up for it, and it was a lot of work. But like, I like bringing new voices on, and I got to meet a lot of like of our diehards would reach out and they're like, I want to argue this, and I said, come on, let's do it. So Legal Arena, Mike, if you're listening to the podcast, if you're one of those that popped up on your Spotify Wrapped, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize I love Conduct Detrimental so much. Reach out. We want to get you involved. Mike, I don't know, but Mike, what's your fancy title? Mike?
According to LinkedIn, I'm the multimedia manager.
I like director of content. How about that?
Okay, I like that.
Does that sound like
Look
a promotion?
At that. A promotion on air.
Does it sound like a promotion?
It does.
You're promoted, Mike. You've done a great job. I'm thankful for you, Mike. You have been you've filled in very admirably for Mike Lawson, who tells me he's going to be back on the podcast in some way, shape, or form. And you're really kind of the straw that stirs the drink here, Mike. So appreciate all your efforts. You've been fantastic, and wishing you a happy and healthy as we head into 2026.
Thank you, Dan. No, you as well. I'm just happy to be here and appreciate it every day.
Okay, ma'am. For all of us here at Conduct Detrimental, wishing everybody a happy and healthy, and we'll see you next year on Conduct Detrimental.